What's up, world? It's the Fun Waste of Time podcast, where a couple of friends get together to discuss all things entertainment, movies, TV, video games, home theater, and anything else considered a fun way to waste your day. I'm your host, Taurus, and along with me this episode, we've got Brad, James, and Jason. Now, we're not industry professionals. We're just fans of our hobbies who enjoy talking shop about our favorite pastimes. So if you enjoy entertainment media, pop culture, and home theater, we hope you enjoy listening into the conversation as much as we're going to have a great time having the discussion. Let's get it started. Welcome to episode 39 of the Fun Waste of Time. We've got another fantastic show lined up for you guys, and this episode is going to be dedicated to video games. We've all played Outriders, and we'll be digging heavy into that today. But before we start the show, let's check in with the fellas. What's happening, guys?
Word up, what's up?
Jason, how have you been?
I'm not too bad, man. Been enjoying Outriders. I'm actually kind of looking forward to talking about it with you guys.
Should be a fun conversation.
For sure.
What's happening, James?
Not much. We're talking about Outriders today. That came out. I'm just kidding.
So we know how James's portion of the discussion is going to go. What's happening, Brad? What's the latest with you?
Oh, not much, man. Just, again, Outriders, that came out? What is I should tell you how it's going to go with me. No, I've been doing good, man. Just working on videos and stuff and, just living the dream.
Now, have you picked up any new toys since you were last on the show?
Yeah, the NVIDIA Shield Pro 4K TV 2019 version. However, that's super long name.
Tell us about it. How is it treating you?
Well, do you want the full story of how I bought it twice?
Let's hear it.
Okay, well, the first time I bought it, man, I did not have a good time with that thing. It was in my eyes at that time, it was a piece of garbage. I was like, how is this thing so highly regarded in the home theater community as like the go-to streaming box for like using Plex and Netflix and all the streaming services? And I returned it. So I was like, man, this is $200. I'm not keeping this crap. So fast forward like a month or so, and I'm like, man, I bought a 6 terabyte hard drive to back up all my 4K Blu-rays, and my Blu-ray player only supports up to a 1 terabyte. So I'm like looking online. It's the Shield, of course. So I'm like, all right, let me give it a shot. So I like hooked it up, and initially I could never get it to connect to my computer for game stream. I couldn't. Like I'd set up Plex, and like an hour later it would just disappear. I was like, I didn't know what was going on, and so I was like, I'm gonna hook this thing up Wi-Fi, and I did. Everything was working. Game stream was working. Latency was an issue with there, but I just happened to look over. I have my router and my modem. Those separate devices sitting on a shelf. I just looked over. I noticed an extra Ethernet cable coming out of the modem. Well, I didn't even think about this, and at some point I must have ran just an Ethernet cable from the modem to my entertainment center to hook up my Xbox to bypass the NAT restrictions that I have on my router that I can't bypass. And I was like, are you kidding me? So the whole time before, I had it hooked up directly to the modem, not even on the same network, which is why Plex stopped working, which is why Game Stream wouldn't work. So finally, I had another cable that I just hooked up, and everything works flawlessly. It is, like my opinion did a complete 180 on it. I was like, I love this thing. I haven't even turned on the Apple 4K TV since I got it, which is about 2 weeks now. I'm just loving it. Plex works great. I've backed up all my 4K Blu-rays on it.
Oh man,
and some of my Blu-rays even. And I mean, they're I'm just it's awesome having that instant access, and it's user error.
Let me ask you this though.
Sure.
Are you planning to eventually do a YouTube video on it?
Yeah, and I will definitely go through that whole story that I just went through because I think it's funny. Because I consider myself tech savvy and smart when it comes to that stuff. But every once in a while, we all make those stupid
Yep.
mistakes, and we're going, wait a minute, like I should have remembered that, I should have known about this, and
And just think,
everybody shares that.
As tech savvy as you are, you can imagine other people, just average Joes trying to set it up, having the same experience you did.
Absolutely.
And not knowing how to resolve it after fooling around with it for a certain period of time. So
yeah.
I think it'd be a really good video for folks to see.
I agree.
Think of how many times we're ready to record and someone's having audio issues and then we realize the mic's not turned on. I mean, it happens all the time. And it's just...
Now, one thing I do want to say before we leave Brad, if you haven't done so just yet, be sure to go subscribe to Brad's YouTube channel, Home Theater Gamer. His channel has great content, and if you're into home theater, tech, and gaming, you're in for a real treat. Well, all right, guys, let's not delay. Let's get things started with video games.
Video games. The Fun Waste of Time Podcast. Pick up the controller. Video games. Video games. Video games.
From the beginning of the year to now, there really hasn't been any new AAA gaming experiences that has fans and enthusiasts within the gaming community excited. Those who are lucky enough to purchase one of the new gaming consoles, which 6 months down the line are still difficult to get, have been starving for fresh, next-gen experiences to play on their improved and recently released systems. While Outriders is not necessarily a AAA game, it is one of the first new experiences released this year. All of us on the show have spent some hands-on time with the game, and just about all of us have finished the main campaign. This episode is going to be centered around our time playing Outriders and whether we feel it's a game worthy to recommend to others, and if we'd like to see it continue as a franchise. Now, we will be getting into spoilers, so if you plan to play the game or haven't finished the game just yet and don't want to be spoiled, come back and check us out after you've done so. Take my word, you'll absolutely want to hear what we have to say about this game. Now, I want to start with our overall impressions and experience playing the game. I think there'll be varying opinions on how we feel, and it'll be interesting to hear where all of us landed. Let's start first with Jason on this one. Jason, what has been your experience with and impressions of this game?
Well, in the beginning, I had the exact same experience as everybody else where I could not log in. Now, I'm not going to rip on the entire game because of the initial server issues that they were having. I understand that. And it's one of those games that's online only. And, there's not really much you can do about that if you're not expecting the kind of volume that they ended up getting with the game. And I think that's cool. I mean, it's cool that a lot of people were interested in the game and, were trying to get on. It was irritating, though, when you buy a game on a Thursday or Friday and you intend to spend your weekend with it and you're not able to do that. From what I hear, though, talking to other people who have played the game in the very beginning, I was actually able to get onto the servers a lot more often than most people were. So I'm very thankful for that. The game itself, I've really enjoyed, though. I like, cover-based shooters. I'm not big on RPGs. I mean, we'll probably get into that stuff a little bit later in the show. But for the most part, I responded very positively to it. And, we talked about the game several months ago on the show. And, it was one of those shows where there's a whole bunch of games that were revealed and we're giving our impressions on them. And I did what I always do. I'm like, yeah, it looks cool. Yeah, I might check it out. Well, this time I did check it out and ended up really liking it. So, I don't want to go to Brad just yet. So let's hear what James thinks, because we all kind of know from behind the scenes what Brad has been thinking of the game. So let's go to James first. James, what have you liked the game? You've been enjoying it?
I actually have been enjoying the game. I do think that it's somewhat unacceptable at this point to have that severe server issues. But I would say to most people's experiences that I had spoken to, mine was on the lighter side, just getting booted, having to log back in, waiting to log back in. I just think to a certain level, especially when you know or you've signed a contract to make a game free, if someone, if people have Game Pass, that has to be expected with nothing else to play. So I was a little disappointed in that aspect of it. I did play solo and co-op. This game is much better with friends. Much better with friends.
Definitely.
Depending on the power choices in your loadout, it almost has to be perfect if you're playing solo. All the character classes are cool except the Devastator. And the story was. Have y'all seen Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Years ago.
The story's just kind of, it's just slapstick and weird, and they put all the cheesy action. That's what this story kind of reminds me of. Is like, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but at the same time, like some of the things that they say, you're just like, wow, really? Honestly. So I found myself laughing.
Hero, really?
Right, it's the only movie I could think of where it was like, the cheesy one-liners and just different things like that. And that's kind of what this game's story reminds me of. Not that it has like any parallels, but it's just stupid, dumb action with comedy.
90s action movie.
Right. So, like I said, I'm enjoying it. I'm not having too many servers issues as we record this on the 18th of April, which is super nice. Some glitching, like I was playing the other night, and I don't know if any of you guys got it yet. They have this real cool power that instead of rolling, you like teleport.
Yeah.
It's badass, especially using the what's it called there? The Trickster. So it's a real cool power that I have on my Trickster. And it was glitching a little bit, but we kind of were having fun with it at this point. At least we can all stay connected.
Right.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would, because I'm normally not a cover-based Gears of War feeling kind of guy. But the movement's fluid, so I'm enjoying it. What about you, Brad?
So my initial impression actually was not really overall negative. Taurus and I played the demo together. We played only 5 hours or so. And I really enjoyed what I played up to a certain point. I mean, the demo starts slow. The beginning of the game starts slow. And it's weird that they chose to open the game the way they did, because it's, in my opinion, that first 15 to 30 minutes, not a great first impression. The shooting feels off and everything feels off. The character dialogue and the voice acting, man, it was rough in that first like 15, and it gets a little better, but there's still spots in the game that it's not. It just sucks. Just plain sucks. But as I started playing the game, Taurus and I got on, I think Friday night, right after it came out. We got about 30 minutes of playtime in. The servers were gone. Like we couldn't connect, kept having issues. And honestly, I expected that. I'm not defending the game. Like James said, to me, it's seeing all the games that came previously, like Destiny and Division. I know they all had launch issues, but I'm still none of those games get a free pass for me either. Like, that's just completely unacceptable to have a $60 game you just paid for. Let's disregard Game Pass for right now. You paid $60 for a game, and you can't play it for the first 3 or 4 days because you can't log in. And for a game like this that does not need online only at all, for no other reason other than for them to have tracking data on you, pretty much, doesn't make sense. If they had an offline mode that people could enjoy solo, totally would have been, yeah, okay, the server's issues suck, but we can still play. You can't play at all. But again, I didn't really. I expected that, and as a kind of a sad state of affairs that we're in right now with games, that's kind of the norm. Launch it now, fix it later, kind of thing. They could have. There are companies out there that can be paid to stress test servers. It won't prevent all server issues, but it can prevent stuff like what happened from happening. But as I played more of the game, I finally was able to log in around Monday or Tuesday. I tried multiple times throughout the week and just could never get in. I started, I liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I like some of the mechanics and some of the powers. There's some things that bother me. But playing solo after playing co-op, it's like with every other co-op game. It just kind of sucks. It's boring playing by yourself when you can play with friends, and I don't play with randoms. So I really liked it. And then we started, Jason and Taurus and I got on, and we were playing a world tier, was it 8 or something like that? And I was having a heck of a time keeping up because you guys were 28, 29, like level 21. I did not have fun other than talking to you guys with the game.
Really?
Yeah, like the game was not fun because I was just dying. Like someone someone would revive me, I would die. Someone would, so it was just like whatever. And then I kind of played more of the game. I finished the game solo. I dropped it to World Tier 1 because I just wanted to get it over with. By that point, the game had a weird arc for me. I played it. I kind of got hooked for maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours total. And then after that, it just started to get super repetitive to me. I wasn't getting any loot. I was playing on like World Tier 5, Tier 6 solo, so very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just started to wear on me. I dropped to World Tier 1. Didn't give a crap about the story. Didn't really like it at all, in my opinion. I just didn't care for it. So yeah, my overall impressions, it's kind of like meh. That's all. Like it didn't really, it screams generic to me. Like it has an amalgamation of a bunch of different games, and jack of all trades, master of none, that type of thing. James,
how much time did you put into like customizing like your powers and your skill tree?
I mean, basically every level I would go in. If I would get a new piece of gear, I had my go-to powers and my go-to mods that I would put on gear, and I would always go back and put those on. So every time I get a new piece of gear, and I go back to the camp and talk to Zahidi and do the whole thing with that. And like that's actually one of the best parts of the game is the whole modding system. But at the same time, I'm kind of worn out on looter shooters, so this kind of comes from a bias. If you're into looter shooters and that's your thing, I know I'm getting a little ahead of the topic, but yeah, if you're into that, cool. But like for me, I'm not about min-maxing all of my armor and stuff, especially with the in-game. So, Taurus, I've talked enough about it. What are your thoughts?
I think you pretty much answered the question that I had for you before I moved on to what my thoughts were. And that was how you feel about other looter shooter games, Destiny and The Division. We played The Division with you once before, me, you, James, and Anthony once. And while you enjoyed the experience of hanging out with us and having a good time joking around, you really weren't having fun with the mechanics of the game for whatever reason.
Yeah,
because it's not necessarily
been there, done that. That was my whole. I put in 150 hours into it already. That was part of it.
Yeah. So the fact that you aren't into looter shooters it makes sense the way that you feel the way that you feel. However, anyone who knows me knows that I've been following this game since it was first announced back at E3 in 2019. Now, at the time, it was just a CGI trailer that they gave us, but I liked the premise of what we saw. 6 months later, back in February of 2020, they gave us our first gameplay reveal, and at that point, I was all in. I thought the power element was really cool. The gunplay looked fun. Loot and gear that you grinded for seemed substantive and plentiful, and it was in one of my favorite gameplay perspectives. I'm a big fan of third-person shooters and third-person perspective action games. And I remember discussing it on the podcast following that gameplay reveal event. And what appealed to me most about the game was the power fantasy element. Jason and I discussed all the time on the show that we like to play games that made you feel powerful. And I remember during the Last of Us review we did on the show a while back, we were both fans of the games, I'm speaking of Jason and I, but mentioned that survival horror really wasn't our favorite thing because it made you the victim who had to survive whatever onslaught was coming your way. And for me in particular, those types of games never really appealed to me, with the exception of a few here or there, such as The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2. So when Outriders came out and we got the opportunity to play the game ourselves, it was exactly what I was looking for. The character classes that you could choose from played differently from one another, but they were all powerful in their own right. You notice right away the impact of loot and gear you acquired in relation to your powers and weapons, meaning they made a difference right away as to the damage you could do on enemies. I like the fact that this was a looter shooter, and they were really putting some effort into establishing the story and lore, which is something you don't get much with these types of games. Now, whether the story and lore appealed to you is personal preference, but I was a fan of it. And for me, there was a lot to like about this game, guys. I took a couple of days off of work following its release.
That is the most tourist thing ever.
I had to, Jason. I wanted to dig into this with no interruptions whatsoever. And those first couple of days, I put in about, say, 20 hours or so playing the game. I took my time going through the story. I read all of the journals and character bios. I started playing this thing first thing in the morning, so I had no issues logging in or progressing through the campaign. I woke up at about, say, 5:30 in the morning. I'd get up, I'd shower, I'd wash up, and then I'd get my glasses ready to get on my system and start playing, because I wanted to get on before anybody else did, just in case there were some issues and that kind of thing. Because typically with new releases and first launches, there are certain types of issues with looter shooter games and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to make sure that I had preempted that. But now there were a few login issues later in the day because more people jumped on the servers at that time. But for me, it wasn't too bad. I was able to get in and play with very little interruptions. And I played the campaign solo at first because I wanted to absorb all the story elements and beats without feeling as if I was slowing down the game for others had I started playing co-op first. And I'm glad I did, because I really enjoyed the story and all the journal entries about what happened on Earth and what eventually was happening on Enoch. So I was a really, really big fan of the game. And unlike James, Jason and I thought the Devastator was pretty darn cool.
I like it.
Our main characters were the Devastator. Now, I went back and played all 4 of the character classes, and I leveled the others up to about, say, 14 or 11. I haven't really finished the game with them just yet, but I definitely will, because I want to check them out and see how the end game for them is. But the Devastator was actually pretty cool. The 3 skills that I mostly used were the gravity leap, where you floated in the air, selected the enemy you wanted to target, and then you did a ground pound directly in front of them, inflicting massive damage. The earthquake skill was the next one that I like to use a lot. And that's where you pounded the ground and it shook and did damage to the enemies directly in front of you. And it exploded enemies that had low health. And then Tremor was the 3rd skill that I like to use. And this is where the ground would shake around you within so many meters, and any enemies that were near you would be thrown off balance, and they'd lose their health, and their health will be transferred back to you. The other class powers were pretty cool too, but I pretty much just chose to stick with those 3 for the most part. So my overall impressions of the game were really positive. I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing this game. I played solo, like I said. Co-op was really fun too. Brad, I really wanted you to enjoy this more than you did. Jason and I had a great time playing. And Jason and I aren't done yet. We might go back and grab my wife and have my wife finish her portion of the game too, because she's playing it as well, and she likes it too. So I've had a positive experience with this, and I understand that a lot of people were having issues, the server issues and the inventory wipe issue. And under those circumstances, I can understand people being a little nervous about jumping in at this point. But I think they fixed a lot of those issues. There's still some, but for the most part, some of the major bugs and issues they were having, they have cleaned up for the most part. But there is still a little more work to do.
I'd also like to give them credit. I don't know if you guys follow them on Twitter. They did a pretty fantastic job of making it pretty lighthearted as much as they can. And that's something I did appreciate. And they were very responsive to those responses that were worth responding to,
Right.
And I thought that made the journey a little bit more unique. The fact that they took the time to respond to people that were, critical, but in a nice, I guess, manner. I remember seeing this one where somebody posted something about SpongeBob, and they're like, "We're on it, Captain SpongeBob," and I thought it was funny. And I really thought that's, if anything, with all the bad crap that happened at the beginning, they really nailed the engagement part. So bravo to whoever their social media person is.
Yeah.
They're worth double because they took the time and the effort to make people feel like they were at least being heard. And ultimately, that's what we all want, right? That's why there's a million freaking podcasts in the world and a million videos.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be heard. So bravo to them.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of the social media team over at People Can Fly, I want to talk a little bit about some of the negative stuff just to get that out of the way so we can focus on those areas that we actually enjoyed. And what I want to do is I want to talk about what aspects of the game did you not like, or what did you find most of its problem areas to be? Let's start with James on this one. James, what areas of the game do you think they could have improved in? What aspects didn't you like? And what do you think they should do in either later in the iteration of the game or in the next sequel that they put out for this game?
I actually, to be honest with you, don't really have too many complaints as far as gameplay. Every game, most of the time, it's not the game, it's you. Let's be honest. When it comes to rolling or moving behind cover, there's a couple times where I thought that so I was behind cover one time and, it puts the A or the X or whatever to move to the next cover. And instead of going the side way, you jump over and you're getting smoked. And I'm just sitting here like, but I'm not pointed that way. Like I'm all the way to the edge and I want to go to the other edge. And you have me go back to the center, jump over, and then move to the next cover. That bothered me. But then I just kind of adapted and found ways around it. The other thing that I don't really care for is having to go back and see somebody to adjust my gear. I don't have to do that. I play a lot of Destiny. I can do it all on my own. I don't have to go back to change a mod. And I feel like there's a lot of wasted time there. If you have limited time, like my brother, he had to get up at 6 this morning to beat a drill. And we're playing last night late. And he's like, man, we spend a lot of time after getting good gear coming back here through a loading screen, sometimes too, because you have to, like, if you did a mission, you have to go back to a camp and then back to another camp. There's a lot of wasted time there. If they could trim some of that fat out of it, I really wouldn't have too many complaints outside of that. What about you, Jason?
You actually touched on a lot of things and a lot of things that I was thinking of. And I will say that my overall impressions of the game have been positive. But there are things that bugged me. One thing that I noticed during the gameplay itself is there are many times where you'll actually get trapped by enemies in a corner and you cannot escape. You can't roll. You can't shoot them because you're not able to orient the camera in a way that you can aim. So you just kind of got to sit there and take it. And hopefully, the enemies will spread out a little bit and give you somewhere where you can come out. That bugged me. That's about it, for the gameplay. Like James was saying, though, I don't like, having to go back and see someone to upgrade my gear and stuff like that. That's, it's kind of an RPG thing, and I understand why they do it. But I don't like it. And I don't like RPGs in general. I think I've made that pretty clear on other episodes and just when we've talked to each other outside the show. But let me speak for one moment to the power fantasy that Taurus was talking about a few minutes ago. When I was between World Tiers 1 and 3, I felt pretty dang powerful. Once I got into 4 and 5, though, and this is just me playing solo, that game became grindy as hell. I would spend, I would probably die 20, 25, 30 times trying to level up so I can pass one area. And this isn't an area, this isn't a boss fight. These are regular enemies. And I don't like that. It's once again, it's one of those RPG things that I can't stand. Now, I understand that that's the appeal of RPGs, but that's why I don't like them. I'm sorry. And, for people that do like RPGs, that's awesome. I'm glad you have that kind of patience. I do not. In another thing, which you can't really blame this game in particular for, or even RPGs in general for, but I hate when I'm fighting enemies and I get the most perfect headshot you can think of with the most powerful weapon I have. And because that enemy is maybe 2 or 3 levels higher than me, it doesn't kill him. Now, look, I understand suspending disbelief. I get it. But look, I've been around the military my entire life, and I know enough to be able to tell you that if you get shot in the face with a 50 cal round, you're going to die. I don't care what your level is. Not only that, but let's face it, in real life, not only will you die, but that bullet will literally liquefy you. I mean, those are powerful rounds. And so it's just one of those things, man, that I can't suspend disbelief long enough to understand, in my head that, okay, this guy's a higher level. That's why the 50 cal bullet to the face didn't kill him. I'm sorry, man. I can't. At least have the character have a helmet on or something, so I can at least sort of believe it.
Well, let me help you justify some of the reasons why these characters are bullet sponges somewhat.
Right.
You're on an alien planet and you're shooting alien enemies. So naturally, the human element of somebody getting shot doesn't necessarily apply because these aliens are so tough, Jason.
Right.
If that helps you accept the game a little bit more, I'm willing to give you more. I can give you more on that if you want.
It doesn't. But, here's the thing. I don't like it, but I can accept it because it's a video game. People literally can't fly. Let's put it that way. So, if I can suspend disbelief, with the developer's name, I can suspend disbelief for the rest. But that's just one thing that's always bugged me in at least in RPGs where you use firearms. If you're playing Dark Souls or something, I can understand that maybe your axe isn't strong enough to get through this higher level enemy's armor. With a firearm and their face isn't covered, yeah, come on, man. Anyway, I've spent too much time on this part, but yeah, that always kind of bugs me. Now, Brad, I know you've got a lot of complaints with this game. Let's do the airing of grievances, brother.
Let's go ahead. So you guys actually touched on what's that?
Put it all out there.
I'll put it all out there. I don't care. You guys actually touched on 2 things that really bugged me from the get-go. One is the loading, and it's so obvious that this game was designed primarily for last-gen systems because, that it was designed and coded and everything before it was ported over to these because, do we need an animation, a loading screen or a loading animation going from I'm jumping over a bridge? Okay. I'm going through a door. It's like all that stuff with the new gen stuff could definitely be cut out because we don't really need those. I will say that the loading times in general are really great on the PS5.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Yeah.
Like they're really short. The other one that Jason touched on was the difficulty ramping up kind of with the world tiers. Now I played on world tier 4, 5, and 6 by myself. And it was funny. Like those really depend on you having good weapons and good armor to make it through. But what I found was I would be breezing through sections of enemies, and then I get to a boss that just completely obliterated me, and I'd have to drop the world tier down, which made 0 sense. The ramp up in difficulty was not small at all. It was tremendous. It was like, okay, this is a boss. We're going to let you know it by making it 100 times more difficult than what you just went through. Which to me, I'm like, okay, if I want to play on that higher difficulty, like that should be reserved for those higher world tiers, But so I'd end up having to drop it down. But, I think one of the big complaints that a lot of people have, and I agree, are the snipers in the game that have just pinpoint accuracy that like to just make you stumble back and
right.
And also those flying spitter whatever birds. Nobody likes those. I can talk all day about the gameplay issues I had with the animations being so outdated and archaic, the graphics themselves looking like a kind of almost like a, PS4 launch title in certain areas. It's high resolution on the new consoles, but a lot of the graphical effects this is not a next gen game at all. Yeah, we're playing it on next gen systems at 60 FPS, which is probably the only really big next gen thing, playing double the frame rate, so it feels smooth. But Taurus knows I had issues with the sound design. In some parts, the guns sounded great, and then other guns, you're like, this is a sniper rifle or this is a LMG. Like, it's just nothing but bass and only bass, which some people like, but I want that. I want it to feel powerful, and some of the things sounded great and other things just didn't. Like the voice acting, there were some parts where I'm like, man, that's they really delivered that performance. And others, you're like, what the heck just happened? Like, is this a B movie? Like, and maybe they were going for that. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I touched on some of the issues I had in the very beginning with the always online being not necessary for this type of game that has a solo mode anyway. You could treat it like Borderlands and have drop in, drop out co-op, but you can play it offline if you want to. Like, there really isn't a reason for it to be always online. Inventory wipes you guys talked about. I don't really want to focus too much on those because they did fix those, but it is kind of cause for concern because it does make me wonder, okay, well, what else is going to go wrong next? Not that they're not incapable of fixing it, but it's like, are they just patching this fully, or are they just putting a Band-Aid on it for now, having it affect less people until they can actually figure out what's going on behind the scenes? I mean, again, I could go on and on, but the one thing I will say, and this is, James was talking about this a little bit, was the cover system, and more specifically, the things that you should be able to vault over that look like you should be able to vault over, like a thing that's 2 feet above the ground, you can't vault over. But, if you go around at this corner and on this side, you can vault over it there, but not on this side. So I'm like, that's kind of where I want to end it, with all the there's more. I've made more notes, but some of it gets really specific, and I don't want to go.
Well, let's go into a few of them. That's what this segment is all about, talking about those areas that.
I already said it feels like a last gen game. There's a certain blandness and generic feeling I get from the game that I can't shake it. There's some parts that are really cool and other parts that I'm just like, did they even test this part? Like, this doesn't look right. Like, something, like, you'll be running up a thing and just get caught out of nowhere. I mean, these are little bugs that honestly don't really detract from the whole experience, but they add to it on top of what was already there. One of the big things is nerfs. They're already nerfing stuff a week within, they're rebalancing, they call it, where and James knows all about this from playing Destiny. They'll nerf they'll nerf certain weapons, like they nerf certain powers. That this is, to me, in a player, it's a PvE game. You're just playing co-op. You're not playing against other people. You don't need to nerf stuff like that. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you're playing on World Tier 1 and a boss is just too incredibly difficult for World Tier 1 and you're a level 27, then yeah, that might need a little work there. But like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, powers that people have already started building around. That's like, okay, we found this was too powerful. And it's like something where they've even come out and said, oh, we're not allowing self revives on solo play because we want you to play it differently when you're playing solo than with co-op. And that kind of didn't make sense to me. I didn't really buy their description of what they were doing there. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else, that gets into personal preference. I found the gameplay repetitive after a while. It's just rinse, repeat every section. I like that it was actually linear or more linear. It wasn't like really open world, which I think actually helped it, move along quicker. But yeah, Taurus, I know that we're like polar opposites with this stuff, which I think is kind of honestly cool because we can talk about it and you will bring up certain points that I'm like, I didn't think of it that way. That's probably not going to happen here because the game's junk. But what I mean is, no, I'm just kidding. What do you think about all this stuff?
Well, no, all of you are bringing up some valid points, and you're absolutely right. The game did have issues when it launched. And I think if they had taken care of some of the server issues and some of the bugs that the game had before releasing the game, or at least telling us that the game was in early access and we were basically beta testing it, I think the reception would have been a lot better. But the core fundamentals of this game, I think, are solid. I really do. And we'll get into talking about how we feel about this being a franchise a little later. But just to give a preview of it, I think this game in the future and any subsequent games that come after it are going to be fantastic based on the core fundamentals being as sharp as they are. But I'm not going to touch on the issues that you guys came up with, but there is one that I do want to bring up that I want to see them correct a little later. And maybe they can do it with this game, but it's more than likely going to be something they're going to have to do with future games. When you have low health and you're on the verge of potentially dying, the screen will go completely red and pulsate to the point where it's hard to see where you're going and who is surrounding you. And it made it very difficult to try and save yourself. That annoyed me to no end because I'm trying to keep my health going. I'm trying to kill something so that I can get some health back. Because as we all know, this game, you don't get health by hiding behind cover or anything of that nature. Typically, you have to be in the action, using your skills and using your weapons in order to get health back by killing some of these enemies. And when you're trying to do that and the screen is completely red and it's pulsating and it kind of zeroes in on you, it's hard to see your surroundings so that you can do what you need to do to try to get some health back. So there was some times where I died, and I think I could have probably kept myself alive if I was able to see some of what I was doing. And that's something that I think they more than likely are not going to touch on this game. I think the game is what it is right now when it comes to that. But with future iterations of the game, I want to see them do something different there. And you already touched on the loading screens for opening doors and jumping over bridges. It did feel out of place in this generation of gaming. And it felt like a trope from not even last gen, but 2 generations ago, PS3 or Xbox 360. And I think that the next iteration of this game, the sequel or maybe in DLC, because the game is such a success right now, believe it or not, guys, with all of the negativity that we're talking about right now about the game was an absolute success. And I truly believe that there is going to be a sequel to this game. So in the next game, I'm pretty sure they're going to clean that up. They're going to have a bigger team to be able to work on this game from what I hear based on how successful the game has been. And a lot of the issues that we've just discussed, the next game, the DLC, the expansions, we're going to see a much better experience with. And James already touched on the fact that the community managers, the folks that run the social media portion of People Can Fly, were pretty diligent about getting online, letting folks know what was happening with a lot of the issues that the game had at launch. And I think we all really appreciated hearing what they were doing to correct some of those issues. It took them a while to get some of that done, but they were really diligent about working, trying to make sure that people could have as best a experience as they could playing this game, even with all the issues that it had. But you all make some fantastic points. I'm glad we actually got this out of the way. So now we can focus on the positive stuff that we really enjoyed about this game. I'm really interested to hear how you guys felt about some of the things that the game does well.
Calling all video game, movie, TV, and home theatre fans. You're listening to the Fun Waste of Time podcast, where we love to talk shop about your favourite hobbies and all the fun ways to waste your day.
So the next thing that I wanted to touch on, guys, we've talked about some of the issues that the game had, some of the things we want to see cleaned up with later iterations of the game, whether it's DLC expansions or even the sequel. Now I want us to talk about what we think the game gets right. And for this one, Brad, because you were the one that had the most when it came to the issues that it had, I want you to tell me what were some things about this game that you really enjoyed, that you really think People Can Fly got right?
Well, this list is going to be way less than the issues I had, but I'm going to go for it anyway. So the modding system, I did really like the modding system. after playing Division 2, trying to get into that with their whole like it's so not convoluted in this game, and it makes sense. I might not like the grindy aspects of it, but it's a looter shooter, so whatever. I like the fact that like when you go and you want to mod something and add something to another piece of armor, you'll see a little indication that says this is already on another piece. Even if it's, this like you're doing that to your helmet and you know that it's on there, it's still a nice thing to be like, okay, since none of these stack, that's a really cool thing. I like that I have a visual representation there of, okay, well, if it's not on my helmet, what else is it on? I'm going to waste this, going forward with this mod on this thing. I really like that. I really like the pacing of the story, even though I'm not a big fan of the story. I like that it got you to different areas quickly. You weren't spending a whole ton of time in the same area, and that's kind of one of the biggest issues I've always had with like Division. Is as much as the graphics and everything in that game look great, you spend a lot of time in just similar looking areas, and this game didn't have that. There was a lot of variety in where you were going. You went from like these forest areas to like a desert to, these kind of futuristic looking, areas. I'm like, that's really cool. Again, didn't really care for the story, but, getting from point A to point B quicker, I think helped it a lot. Even though I found the gameplay repetitive, I wanted to see where I was going next. Co-op is a lot of fun. They really nailed being able to play with your friends when you can without the issues. I really wish it was more than 3 people allowed in a team. I think for some reason 4 would have made more sense to me here. 3 is a very is it like aren't only 3 people allowed in like a fire team on Destiny? Something like that. Yeah, so I don't know if they like modeled it after that or they found that, through our research we found that. But I really liked the co-op. It made, like I said, playing with Taurus and Jason on those really high world tiers made it tolerable. I won't say I had fun playing the game, but like hearing the explicitives come out of Jason's mouth while Taurus is like, come on guys, we got this. And I'm over here dead like for 5 minutes. It made it more enjoyable because I'm like, okay, well I can just watch you guys run around my dead body. Like that's, it's fun. And then, super quick loading times, even though, there were an abundance of unnecessary loading times getting into the game and, loading into the world, is really quick. It goes from like, loading 1 to 80% to 100 and you're in, which is good because like you guys said, you're going to be spending a lot of time going here and there and everywhere. The gunplay does feel really good depending on what gun you have. Surprisingly, your handgun, couldn't think of the name there. Your handgun, your sidearm, some of those are really cool. Like you dual wielding stuff. Like I don't know, it felt really, really neat, and some of the powers are really cool. I played a pyromancer, so it was all about fire. I don't really know how I could lose health when I'm caught on fire because I'm, emitting fire, but whatever. This is about the positives of the game. See the stuff I'm forgetting now. It's all coming back. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I liked some parts of the story. I really didn't care for it, but some parts of the story were cool. And I really wish they would have explored that more. Explored certain areas, certain story beats more instead of just, like when a character dies, I wasn't really invested in that character. I was just like, oh, okay, they're dead. That's it. It's not like Last of Us 2 where, a main character dies that you're invested in. You're like, holy crap, like this sucks, But I think I don't really have many more positives to say.
No, that actually was pretty good, Brad. Hey, as a matter of fact, we need to give you an applause, brother, because you did a pretty good job talking about the positives, even though you had some serious issues with it. I think you did fantastic.
I was expecting the Haterade song just now. That hater, please don't play it.
You came back.
That's my song. That's my song.
That is literally set aside for James and Anthony. So you know.
Gotcha. And there's only one part of the puzzle here today, so
that's correct.
It don't have to be all on James. Song. But speaking of James, what did you think of the game? Like, how do you feel? Like, what do you feel the game got right?
I feel like they really did, outside of having to go back to do the mods, I think the mods are awesome. I really do. And just an example, my brother and I are playing. He's playing as a Technomancer. If you don't know, Technomancer primarily freezes are toxic. He's doing the freeze. So basically, as a trickster, I set myself up and my weapons up to do more damage as his turret is freezing enemies. So, if he froze them or was freezing some of them, I would slow trap them all. And that's this big dome bubble, for those of you who don't know, that slows enemy movement. And the rest of them would freeze. And then I would use my Hunt the Prey, which allows you to teleport behind. And there's also a damage mod boost for that. And with combination with that damage mod boost and the damage mod boost out of my shotgun, we literally just sat there laughing as things are shattering into a million pieces because it's literally just one shot with the automatic shotgun and they're blowing up. So I really think the modding, especially if you're playing with your friends and you're asking them, what are you putting on? You can really dial that in along with your class to really have a really fun experience, even when the game seems a little bit hard, world tier wise. And I think that's where probably for me it excels the most. I do like how each power does bring something other than the others to the table. I've spent time with all four. Devastator is my least favorite, as I said. All I kept thinking about was the dude in Fantastic Four. What's his name? The rock guy.
The Thing.
Yeah, not Human Torch. We know who Human Torch is, but the rock guy, I don't remember his name.
The Thing.
Yeah. So I just kept getting that kind of feel and vibe. And I'm sure if I deep dove on the internet, I could find a setup that I would like with that character. And that's another thing that I think is cool is when you start out of the game, you're given 3 powers. Those powers you could ride through the end of the game and you would still have an absolutely fantastic time. And you would never feel like you were behind any of your friends. If you just generically just said, hey, I'm going to do that and I'm going to pick whatever skill tree looks cool or just be all over the place, you would be totally proficient enough. And that's why I'd asked you earlier, Brad, if you'd messed around with the skill tree and stuff, because I felt like I was doing certain things and I was using certain powers that weren't really for my class skill tree. And then as I kind of figured that part out, I was like, damn, okay, so I can do this and this and this. And that'll help the powers that I'm using currently. Another thing.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, you bring up a really good point, and that's a positive that I completely forgot is the ability to respec your skills at any point. So if you're playing a certain way and the skills aren't, kind of conducive to what you're doing, then you could just respec and put all those skill points in part of the tree that makes the most sense for your playstyle.
And because the trees connect, you could technically snake through all 3 of them if you wanted to. And to your point, that was going to be my next point. That's awesome that there is no penalty for you to be able to reset your entire skill tree at any time. And even the fact that if you have 1 or 2 class points and you put them in a hurry and you didn't really look, you could just hit, I think it's like X, and it'll take those back right there on the spot without resetting your whole tree.
Yeah.
That's awesome. In Destiny, I have to pay Glimmer to put a different mod in my armor. And while it's only 500, but if I'm doing the raid with a character and I don't have it set up for the raid, then I have to go through and, I can have up to 5 specs on each piece of armor that I'm changing. So it can get a little heavy if you're going from a raid to saying PvP. So that part I enjoy and thought was really cool that you can kind of just do it and it's there. I really thought the world design, not necessarily what you're playing through. What you're playing through reminds me of Unreal Tournament 2, like on PS3. You load in and it's pretty much like a square map and they just put boundaries and paint it colorfully. But the backdrops I thought really looked cool. If you look at some of the stuff, like I think it's like the 3rd area that you visit, there's like a broken spaceship. You're just like looking off in the distance from the cliff. Like, I thought a lot of that stuff looked cool, not so much the levels that you're playing in. What I also like too is even if you're both playing the same class, you can kind of work around to make it work for everybody, so it doesn't feel like one of you needs to change. That was one of the other things that I really liked. Me and my brother were both playing, I think it was the Devastator, and he kind of went for more like close range, and I was able to move my powers around a little bit to make it a little bit farther range. We had different setups, and it still worked. That's pretty much it for me. What did you think, Jason?
You guys hit on a lot of the stuff that I was thinking of, so I won't need to go into too much detail. First of all, and this is just a personal preference for me, major positive was the ability to skip cutscenes. I do not want to watch story. I just want to shoot stuff. And they gave me that ability, so I was so thankful for that. Now, when you're playing co-op, everyone has to agree to skip the cutscene. So, if I'm ever playing with people who care about the story, that's going to be rough for me. But that was a good thing. And, since it gave me the ability to get to the shooting, I will say that I actually really liked the gunplay. I thought the weapons felt good, especially, if you're playing with that DualSense on the PS5, that it really, once again, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, but it makes you feel powerful because you feel like you have a powerful weapon. That's really cool. And I mean, and you're talking to a guy who in real life has no interest in guns whatsoever. But man, in this game, I wanted the biggest, nastiest, scariest guns I could find. And so, yeah, I really liked that. The game itself, just overall, I had a very positive impression of. And, maybe I have a bit of an advantage in that I'm kind of new to these types of games. The only RPG shooter that I'd ever really put any significant amount of time into was Destiny, like James was talking about. And I really enjoyed that game, despite the RPG elements, which I, to a certain extent don't like, but I can handle in small amounts. So I did like that, what you guys were saying about being able to upgrade your weapons. I loved being able to dismantle all of what I considered kind of junk weapons and then put those parts into the weapons I'm actually using to power them up. And that got me out of trouble when I was playing solo quite a few times. You die 10 times and you're like, what am I doing wrong? And then you realize you haven't upgraded any of your weapons for a while. Of course, once again, like James was saying, I didn't like having to go, out of the battle and go visit someone to upgrade those weapons, but it was worth it because I ended up getting past those parts that I was stuck on. So lastly, though, I will talk about the co-op experience. I did play it solo for a couple days once I was able to get into the servers regularly. And it's so funny, man, Brad, my heart was kind of breaking, man, because the way you were saying that when you and Taurus and I were playing that you weren't having much fun, because I'm going to tell you, as stupid as this sounds, man, that is a gaming experience that I will remember forever because I had so much fun. I'm not even kidding. And once again, it might be because I'm kind of new to the experience. I don't play a lot of co-op online. And I mean, I had so much fun that night, man. I didn't want it to end. So when I heard Brad say, "Oh, I didn't have any fun," I was like, "Oh man."
Hey, don't feel bad because when we all played the Division the last time with James and Anthony and Brad and I, we all were having a fantastic time.
Yeah.
Or so I thought. And then Brad came back and he was like, "Hey, man, I had a great time hanging out with you guys, but I'm really tired of this game, right?" I'm just not into the game much anymore. It kind of broke my heart a little bit. I was like, we have to find something that Brad really loves so that we can have him have a great experience too.
I'm telling you, we've talked about this, Taurus, not to go off topic, but when I'm in the game, it's one thing to, throw explicitives out and be like, "Oh man, I'm dying, blah, blah, blah." But I don't try to I don't try to ruin the experience that other people are having. So that's why after the fact, I reach out to Taurus and be like, "Hey, I didn't have that much, I enjoyed hanging out with you guys in Division. I didn't really, I'm kind of done with the game, and same with Outriders, you guys are having a ball. I'm just like, I'll just sit here dead. I mean, I'm just still getting some XP anyway. So,
That's all right, Brad. We're going to find that game.
That
that
one
you
game.
are going to really enjoy, man. I
That
don't know if
one
it's going to be Aliens Fireteam when it comes out, because that's coming out sometime in June.
If they
I
make
don't know what
another
it may be.
50-cent game, I'll be all over
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah, that was a good game, man.
those are
That
good.
was a good
man.
game. That was it was like Army of Two, but better.
Mhm.
Yeah,
If
it was
that's
really
even
good.
possible. There's a
missed that.
diamond
I
skull.
missed that.
Anyway,
All right. Well, let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about what I think the game gets right. Now, here's what's big for me about this game. Unlike Destiny, The Division, GTA Online, when they first launched, I'm talking about the first games because all of them, well, Destiny and The Division have sequels. GTA's been out there for years now, but they had some serious issues when they launched. And I played them all when they came out, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't get into them. Destiny 2, I played, and I actually finished Destiny 2. I finished some of the expansions that came out for it as well a little later. But just speaking of the initial games and comparing it to what Outriders is at this point, Outriders has me hooked compared to where I was when I played those games for the first time. And that's why I think, for me, Outriders is going to be something that I will seriously continue to follow, because with all of these little shooter games, there haven't been any that have compelled me to want to continue to play and have provided me with as much fun as I've had with Outriders. So in that regard, Outriders has the jump on some of these other looter shooters and other games within this genre. So that I really do love. And then the game was released at a time when no other major or AAA games were releasing. So it had this time frame all to itself. So people were clamoring and starving for something new to play. And then this game came along and it fulfilled that need for a lot of folks. If you go on YouTube and you look up Outriders, there is a slew of videos that people have put out about this game, whether it's the demo when it was out a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, or about the game when it finally released also. People have just been talking about this game more than I've seen of just about any other game that's out there, because it's the only game that's really out right now that is a major release. I won't say that it's a AAA experience, because with some of the issues that it has, I wouldn't necessarily consider it AAA. AA, definitely. Super fun, absolutely. But some of the gameplay mechanics aren't necessarily considered AAA. So in that regard, I think it was fantastic that it came out when it did. And the fact it's rated R, the particle effects on this game. Did you guys just see that? The bodies just exploding, the blood bubbling up in the air. This game was freaking fantastic to run through and see all of the damage that you could do on some of the monsters and some of the people that you fight in the game. And I absolutely love that. I think that People Can Fly did a fantastic job with that. And the crafting system, I thought the crafting system was very easy to use. And Jason, I have a question for you, because I know prior to you and I playing co-op, you really weren't doing much crafting on your weapons. But then after I took a little time to explain to you how the crafting works, and you got the opportunity to utilize some of it, how did you feel about crafting after that?
Well, I was doing a bit of crafting, before we played co-op, but really what it was for me, I didn't want to put a lot of thought into it. So I just went in and crafted everything until it was as high a level as I could get to, and then that was it.
And see, that's what's cool about the game, though. You can get as deep into the crafting system as you want.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really don't want to dig too deep into it, you can go in at a surface level, do whatever you need to do in order to get through the levels that you're going through, and then leave it at that. But for those that really want to dig in to the crafting system, there's a lot of meat for you to work with there. And I was one of those ones that actually really dug into the crafting system and really tried to learn how to best utilize it and how to find some of the best builds for the character that I was using. As we stated earlier, James wasn't into the Devastator, but you and I were big fans of that character class. And we did a lot of damage on enemies based on having that character class.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's kind of a misunderstood character class, if you want to call it that. But just freaking fantastic with the crafting that you could do throughout the character classes, the gear, and also the weapons. And you guys already talked about respecing skills. I thought that was actually pretty cool to do. I didn't actually do it to see how another build would work for me as I was going through some of the campaign, but having that option was kind of nice to know that it was there. The enemy AI was extremely well designed, I thought. You couldn't stay in one place too long because enemies would use different tactics to attack you and keep you on the move. That tagline that they had in the game called "Cover is for cowards," they really stood by that. Because they would not let you stay in cover for very long at all. I thought the world tier system was a nice way to level up or level down the game's difficulty depending on what you wanted to do, because it allowed you to adjust the exact right amount of challenge for your play style. And unlike a lot of games where you just get difficult, moderate, easy, you actually had all of these different tiers that you could work through, and you could find the right balance for how you wanted to play. So that actually was pretty awesome as well. Another big positive of the game, I think, and I don't think any of you have touched on this just yet, but the game released with in-game content. How often does that happen with any of these looter shooter games that we play or these live service games that we play? Typically, you have to wait 3 months, 6 months, a year in order to get any in-game content after you finish the main campaign or whatever else they release with the game. And this game actually released with in-game content already included in your initial purchase of the game, those challenge tiers. So they did a lot right. They really did. And I just appreciate the fact that they took their time to make sure that they were giving their players and giving the folks that were interested in the game as much content as they needed to feel as if their purchase was worthwhile. They really did a fantastic job with that. But those are some of the things that we feel the game got right. And one last thing that I do want to touch on is the co-op aspect. The co-op was super, super fun. Super fun, as Jason stated. We had such a good time playing this game. And I played with my wife as well. My wife was just enjoying it as well. And there are times when I'll be sitting on the couch watching her play, and then I see her struggling. Then I'll run upstairs to my game room. I'll put on my headset. I'll jump online. Okay, babe, let's help you get through this part. Because she may have been having a difficult time trying to get through a certain section based on the world tier that she was playing on. So I jump on with her sometimes, and we'd get through whatever levels, or if she was trying to get past a certain world tier, we would do that together. So lots of fantastic things that this game did right. Okay. So now the next question that I want to ask you guys, and I'll start with James on this one. James, have you played any of the in-game expeditions, the challenge tiers?
I actually haven't yet. So what I did is I have one character that's almost through the entire story. And I knew, just like, when I played Destiny as well, leveling up your other two characters that aren't your main character just feels like a torment, especially if they're way, way behind. So what I tried to do is bring everybody along pretty much at the same time. So, I have my Technomancer, which is my main. He's at level 29. And then the other three classes, I all have almost 2/3 of the way through the story. And I did that so it didn't feel as grindy. And I also did it because I knew that my main was going to be way ahead of my friends. So I have them kind of staggered where I can jump in with somebody's game or they can jump in mine. And, they may have got frustrated and gave up on the weekend, and now I can still play it. But I am looking forward to that as well. But not yet. I haven't. What about you, Jason?
Well, before you move on to Jason, Let me ask you this. You haven't finished the main campaign just yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay. What level and what level are you right now? And what world tier are you on?
I'm playing my Technomancer. I'm playing on world tier 10, level 29. That's what I'm playing.
Jason, what level and what world tier were you?
I'm pretty sure I'm level 29, world tier 7. I am not going to be doing any of the in-game stuff on that level, though, man. And I know
we'll come back to that in just a moment, Jason.
Okay.
I want to ask Brad. Brad, what level and what world tier are you? Did you end at?
World tier 9 and then level 29. I wasn't playing on World Tier 9, but that's what I've unlocked.
I've made it to World Tier. Well, my character's level 30, and I've made it to World Tier 9. Once I got to 8, I actually would drop it down to like 7, because the challenge on the game, once you get to 9, really ramps up, and you have to have the gear in order to keep up with those enemies at that level. But I'm sorry, James, back to you. So you haven't finished the campaign just yet, but you're planning on checking out the expeditions once you do, you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy. And like, that was one of the things too, like when we were texting early on about it, and, you know, you were in the teens and I was a little bit behind you, and you're like, oh, you know, I'm stuck on it. I think you said like World Tier 6 at that time. And I was like, man, that's crazy. I was like, because I'm playing on World Tier 8 and I'm not really having a problem. And that comes back to with looter shooters as well, is what kind of gear's dropping for you. That also can make the experience good or bad.
And I just want to say the reason you were able to play at World Tier 8 and not have any issues is because James is the looter shooter king, man. He's playing Destiny every week.
No.
Pro player.
Not at all. Very far from it. I know how to stay alive. That's the only credit I'll give myself.
All right.
I am crafty enough to stay alive.
I think you're not giving yourself enough credit, but I hear you. Okay. So what about you, Jason? Have you played any of the in-game expeditions?
Just a couple. They're very, very difficult. You know, as much as we make fun of Taurus for playing on fun mode, I'm so tempted, man, because I can't. I don't want it to get to the point where it's not fun and I don't want to play. And so I've tried a couple of those expeditions. They've been real hard. I tried a couple with Taurus. They've been real hard. Now let's be clear here that, you know, Taurus and I, while we were trying to do those expeditions, got interrupted a few times. His wife came in and said, "Hey, help me bring these groceries in right now." So he's like, "Yeah, Jason, you're on your own for a second." And so I had to wait for him to bring the groceries in. And then, you know, there's a couple times when my daughter interrupted me. And so, you know what? Let's blame them.
I agree, Jason.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree.
It's not because we're not good gamers. Nah. If it wasn't for that, we could have beat those on tier 9, man. But anyway, what I was, you know, starting to say before is, I think in order to enjoy any of those, and I do plan on playing them. I mean, I paid $60 for the game. I might as well enjoy it for more than 2 weeks. So I'm going to go through some of those, but I plan on doing those with Taurus. I was hoping to maybe do some with Brad too, but he doesn't like playing co-op with us. So, you know,
hey, I'll play. You know what? I will suck it up and I will play with you guys.
Okay.
I mean, not right now because we're doing a podcast, but you know, at some point I will jump back in. I'm not completely writing the game off, you know, just yet. I want to see how it progresses, and you know, because with some of this stuff, it can get better and better, and
sure,
you know, they make some adjustments here and there, and yeah. So
by the time he's ready to join us, Jason, you and I are going to be challenge tier 35.
Oh,
probably.
No.
You know, he's going to be stuck at challenge tier 1. We'll have to help him get up to where he needs to be.
Well, I'll tell you though. I mean, I got no problem, you know, creating new characters, just like James was saying, at different levels to play with different people. I mean, like I said, I can't imagine doing a whole lot in this game solo anymore, which is so unlike me, because normally that's all I want to do. I just want to be left alone. I want to push buttons and shoot stuff.
Think about it this way too, guys. We've put in over 20 to 25 hours into this game already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we've gotten our $60 worth already. So whether you choose to go back in and play more, or if you feel good about what you played up to this point and are ready to move on, you got 25 hours worth of content that was somewhat satisfying for you because you went and finished the campaign, or you're near finished. You're near done with the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, I think that's a win where people can fly as well. Now let's go to Brad. Brad, have you done the expeditions?
No, I haven't even. I literally just beat the campaign a couple days ago. Told you I'm taking a break because I feel a little bit like I have about 30 hours into the game. I feel a little burned out right now. I'd like to take a break. Like when I beat it, the inventory wipe was still going on, and basically the expeditions and the Outriders camp was where that was targeted. So like that's where it was happening the most. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to play it safe. you guys coaxed me into playing co-op with you because I wasn't even going to do that. Like I was like, dude, if I lose everything, that's it. I'm trading this digital game in. This is going away. But I do want to jump back in. I want to see, like what I do enjoy about it, and what I like about that aspect, the in-game content, is it isn't like Destiny where you have to really stay on it. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind, if that makes sense. Like Destiny is always coming out with new stuff. James knows you got to stay up on that. If you don't, you're on your own. Like, you may be part of a clan and you might have some people that help you out, but like you got to kind of suck it up and just figure stuff out for yourself. But yeah, I definitely want to jump back in. I'd love to play with you guys again. If you're playing on like World Tier 10 and I'm cursing a lot and I just like end up, rage quitting or something, don't blame me. It's your fault.
Hey, listen, we know when Brad's not having a good time because he goes quiet. Either he goes quiet or he starts complaining. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm dying, guys. I've been dead for 5 minutes now.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be kind of cool to see now that, we're all close to the same level.
Yes.
Whereas like I was severely underleveled for what we were doing.
That is true.
My weapons sucked. My armor sucked. The guys were one-shotting me. I was watching your health bars and like you guys were getting hit, like barely affecting you. And here I am, one shot. I'm like dead.
Man.
So I'm like, would that be fun for anyone? Really?
I will be honest. That can kind of hamper your fun if you're too lower leveled and everybody else is higher level than you, because we were about 6 levels higher than you as we were running through the campaign with you. So you were catching up to us pretty quick.
Yep.
But I think that can kind of hamper the fun for you based on how the difficulty has been ramped up when you're playing with higher level characters.
Yeah.
James, you had something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I definitely feel Brad on the burnout because, it doesn't take you too long to get about halfway through the story. So I did that 4 times, over the course of the first 2 weeks. So, because this is the end of week 3, right?
Yeah.
So this past week, I did my Destiny stuff on Tuesday, and I didn't really touch it much this week. Just because I kind of got the burnout getting them all to the same point. I definitely there is some burnout there, but like Tor said, I've already gotten my $60 worth. If there's something that they could add, maybe some cosmetic stuff, like I like microtransactions, I guess. So I mean, I kind of need something. Like, it's cool that the weapons like have different designs. I'll give them credit for that, but like I would like my suit to match. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, the armor shaders, like Destiny has.
It doesn't even have to be shaders. It doesn't even have to be shaders. Like, it's tough to get like top to bottom. I don't know, maybe in the expeditions that's different, but it's tough to get head to toe all the same pieces without spending an exorbitant amount of resources to keep that gear leveling up with you.
Right.
Yeah, to touch on that real quick, this isn't actually what I was going to say, but to touch on that, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I think, did something really cool where if you got a piece of gear, you could dismantle it, and now you have unlocked that gear type. So you could apply that look. It wouldn't change the stats. You just apply that look to another piece of gear, so that way all your gear could match. So for people like you, people like me who have OCD, I like, if my top gear piece is yellow and the bottom one is green, and it's like I just look like a crazy character or something, just multicolored. So maybe they can implement something like that. I don't see how it would be that difficult, but what I was going to say is, I've dogged on the game a lot in this podcast, and I've had a lot of issues with it. But I've played it for 30 hours, and while I may not have enjoyed 100% of that, I still feel like it was worth. I got my $60 worth.
Yeah,
essentially. Like and especially if someone has Game Pass, check it out. Like it to me, I'm like, if you could spend 20 to 30 hours, that's $60. That's a bargain.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Fun Waste of Time podcast.
Well, all right, guys, we have just a couple more things that I want us to talk about before we close out. And the next thing that I want to ask you guys, and this one's real simple. Was the game fun to play? I'll start with Jason on this one. Jason, was this game fun for you to play?
Absolutely. I really like it. I was saying earlier on that we spoke about it on previous episodes, and I really didn't have a whole lot to say about it other than, it looks kind of cool. It was a good surprise for me. I primarily purchased the game knowing that us guys would be playing some co-op on it. Had it not been for that, I probably, well, not probably. There's a good chance, though, that I may have passed it up, and I'm glad I didn't. The co-op experience has made it so much better for me. This coming from a guy that doesn't do co-op as a general rule, I have really, really enjoyed the game, and it's been quite a while. I think the last time I put this much time into a game and actually enjoyed one this much was Ghost of Tsushima, which didn't that come out like in September of last year or something like that?
July.
Was it July? Oh man.
July.
Okay. Anyway, maybe I played it until September, but yeah, it really has been a pleasant surprise for me. And so it's not perfect. We've discussed all of these things. But what game is? I mean, I've loved Super Mario Brothers for 35 years, and it's got glitches in it. What can you do? So yeah, overall, it's been a very positive experience for me. Now, Taurus, do you want our letter grades right now?
We'll get to that in a minute. I just want to find out if you guys actually found it was fun. We'll come back to that.
Yes, I did.
So let's go to Brad. Brad, did you have fun playing this game? Bottom line.
Yes and no. That's the bottom line. I would probably say 50-50. I enjoyed 50% of it. The other 50, I was kind of got to that burnout period with a repetitive gunplay at points, and especially when you're playing by yourself. It's not honestly, don't get this game to play solo. That's my opinion.
Right.
Even because one, it's already online, and two, it's just once you play the game with other people, playing solo is like playing Borderlands by yourself or playing Destiny by yourself. Or it pales so much in comparison to the online co-op.
I will disagree with you on that, Brad, respectfully. The reason I say that is because I played it solo, and the reason I played it solo is because I wanted to take in the story and all of the different story beats and elements of the game. And the fact that you can control all of your world tiers and everything else, take the game to a difficulty level that you can manage, makes the game a lot more fun playing solo as well. You don't have to go through this game and constantly feel as if you're having a difficult time getting through the levels and not really able to enjoy the story. That's what those world tiers are for. But you're absolutely right when it comes to playing co-op. Co-op is the preferred way to play. It's the more fun way to play because playing with friends is always going to be more fun than playing by yourself most of the time. Now, James, what about you? Did you find this game to be fun?
Yeah, I absolutely found it to be fun. And I think what made me realize that it was fun is when, there's that certain point, like when you're like finished doing stuff and like the music goes boom, boom. And I found myself like every single time that happens, me doing that same noise, like, and my brother too. And I think if you can, mimic or replicate a noise that has resonated with you in a game, then yeah, it's definitely fun. The powers are cool. And like I said, when you're playing co-op and you can work with each other on getting the right mods so your powers work together, and then you see it all come together, you're like, damn, we just blew up like 20 people in 2 seconds. Yeah, it's definitely fun enough to play, for sure.
Now, I got another question for you, James. What do you think this game needs to do in order to compete with Destiny 2 for you?
Ooh.
Or can it? Can it even compete with Destiny 2?
I'm so invested in Destiny that I don't even know if it could compete per se. I don't think I want it to either. I like the things that it does on its own. I like that I, at this point, don't have weekly challenges. And as of right now, like I don't have things that make it feel like a job. Sometimes Destiny at this point, like I'm so invested, it feels like, you know what, this is my part-time job. Like, we play every Tuesday night And then it's kind of like okay, when can we squeeze in getting this certain thing done before the season ends and that certain thing done before the season ends? With this, I can just get on and play at my own pace. And like Brad, talked about earlier, you're not left behind as of right now. Outside of your level, you're not really left behind. So yeah, I absolutely like it. I enjoy it. And I like that it's different from Destiny.
So the last question before I want you guys to give your grade. Well, I will say that I had a great time with this game. I've already talked to you guys about how I feel. My experience with this game was extremely positive. But the next question that I have for you is, do you want to see this continue as a franchise? Let's start with James first. Yes or no?
No. But yes. I want it to be the same mechanics that it is, but a different place, not a continuation of the story. So I guess kind of like how Assassin's Creed does different things, of a year. That's how I would like to see it, I guess, continued. Not really necessarily like a part 2 of Outriders, the story that we got.
Okay. What about you, Brad?
I mean, James literally took the words out of my mouth. But I would love to see a second game, but I don't using the same mechanics, but not in the same place. And you got to vary it up and maybe throw some more classes in there too, just to give people more options. Like I think the core of the game has some really cool elements. Obviously, it needs some more polish and stuff, but I think that they really could. They got something. They have something here. It's not fully realized yet, I think. And yeah, I would love to see where they go with it.
What about you, Jason? Do you want to see this continue as a franchise?
It's honestly, it's going to be, for now, it's going to be a no for me as well. And it's not because I don't like the game. I just don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's one of those games that's all online. It's they can add to it whenever they want to, as much as they want to. The game being online, it's not like this is a game that we're going to play with our grandkids, 30 years from now and then play the entire series with them. Once these servers are gone, they're gone. We're not going to be able to play it anymore. So yeah, well, this is one of those situations where I'm going to say I reserve the right to change my mind. We're 3 weeks in, man. I really don't want to be thinking about sequels right now. As we were discussing before, I'd much rather see a sequel to, in the 50 Cent series right now than Outriders. So let's enjoy Outriders right now for what it is. See what they add to it a little bit later. And then, a couple of years from now, if we're itching for a sequel, then I'll go ahead and say that I was wrong with what I said today. But Taurus, I have a feeling I know what your answer is going to be, but why don't you tell us?
I think Brad hit the nail on the head for me. The potential of this game has not fully been realized just yet. There's so much more that People Can Fly will be able to do with this game with more money, more resources, and more time. I want to see this become a franchise because I like the core mechanics. I like the fundamentals of the game. They are extremely solid. For me, it is super, super fun. And I want to see more in this world. They can go to Enoch. They can stay in Enoch, but I'm pretty sure they can come up with some different areas in Enoch that you can play through. We've just seen the surface level of what this planet is all about. There was a lot of enemy variety in the game for me. I was happy to see that, as well as the locations. I think James touched on that quite a bit. The locales that you go to were nice and varied, so you never really got tired of looking at the same locations. The enemies felt the same way to me. Now, there were some of the same enemy types, I will say, but for the most part, they were varied enough and they tried to do different enough things with them that it felt good to play through for me. So I want more in this world. I want to see this game succeed. I want them to give me a sequel. And this will be my Destiny 2 like it is for James. Destiny 2 is James' go-to game. This is going to be my Destiny 2, my go-to game. Brad?
Yeah.
I want to see what they do. I wanted to add this real quick because we've talked about this. When they completely ditch the last gen stuff and solely focus on PS5, Xbox Series consoles, and PC, I want to see what that, because I think they could really do a lot more than having to try to develop for the lowest common denominator. Plus, this game was in development for 7 years or so, right? So
2015, 6 years.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really would be interested to see what kind of things. I mean, I'm sure it would just play a lot better, function a lot better, have a lot more mechanics.
That's an excellent, excellent point, Brad.
Yep.
Because the game released on like 7 different platforms, even more than that. I'm talking about this gen. It released on last gen. And when you think about last gen, you also have to think about the original PlayStation 4, the original Xbox One, the Pros, and the Series X's, 1X's, and all of that that came out with it. So they had a lot that they really needed to focus on, and they had to spread their resources too wide, I think. And that's why they really didn't nail this launch the way that they should have. So just being able to focus on next gen, I think the game will be in much better shape. The sequel that they put out, should they choose to do that. But now, guys, let's go ahead and get to our grades. What grade would you give Outriders? Let's start with James on this one. James, what grade are you going to give Outriders? Now, for those that are listening and for those that are watching, the grading system that we have on the Fun Waste of Time, we utilize the American school grading system, where an A is fantastic, a B is great. You'd absolutely recommend this game. A C is just good, kind of average. A B is poor. A D is poor, lacking in quality, and you cannot recommend it. And an F is just awful. Don't waste your time. James, A through F, what grade would you give Outriders?
So I would give Outriders an A. And here's why I give it an A. On your list, because Torres does a great job on our production notes. He sent a list. It says A is fantastic, exclamation point. Highly recommended, exclamation point. Do not miss playing this game. So the only thing that I will say that's wrong with that is I think depending on who you are, you could miss this and it really wouldn't hurt your feelings any with all the other offerings that there is. So I would have given it an A+ if it didn't say do not miss playing this game. But because you included that, I'm only giving it an A. What about you, Brad?
I actually battled with this one for a while. I so wanted to give it a D just to be that guy, but I can't. I can't because I did enjoy.
Hold on, Brad. But before you continue on, I'm sorry, James. I've got to play this just one time for this guy.
James Anthony Hatery.
It's what's in your cup. It's what's in your cup, Brad. It's what's in your cup. But please, let's keep it going.
You did not let me finish. So I wanted to give it a D, but I'm going to have to give it an F. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually going to go with C, right in the middle. In per Torres's stuff that James was talking about. C is check it out if you're into this style of game. May not be for some. And I think that fits this game perfectly. Just from reading stuff online, some people love this game. Torres loves this game. Some people hate this game. I'm kind of like right in that middle section of like, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I enjoyed some of it. I didn't enjoy some of it, but I would recommend this game if you're into looter shooters and you're looking for something to kind of, you're over Destiny, you're over Division, or you want something else to play that's new, that's just out. I think that if you're into that, it would really be good for you, basically, to check it out. If you're not into those games, I would say this is more accessible than Destiny, in my opinion. It doesn't require as much time investment, and especially if you're doing raids and stuff. Then, yeah, you're not going to like this game if you're not into looter shooters. I think that's just really, really what it comes down to. Jason?
I'm going to go with a B. I've really enjoyed it. For a guy who does not like RPGs, it has provided me with a lot of entertainment. As we've discussed before, I got my $60 worth. So I've really enjoyed it, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to playing it more. Doing some of the stuff now that I've gotten through the main story. The only reason it's a B is just because for people who aren't into RPGs and may not know what they're getting into when they play this game, just like I was talking about earlier, they may not understand how a guy doesn't die when you shoot him directly in the face. So I think it could be confusing to some of the normies out there who don't play these kind of games all the time and don't understand, why you've got this great weapon, but it doesn't seem to be working. So, that's the only thing keeping me from giving it at least an A-, but I have really enjoyed it. So, Taurus, go for it.
I'd be a hypocrite if I gave this game anything less than an A. I really would be, because I've been excited about this game for so long. It lived up to the expectations that I had for it, but I won't give it an A+ because of all of the issues and bugs that it had initially when it launched. I actually didn't have very many, I will say. The solo play that I had went fantastically for the most part, but there were times where I couldn't get in. There were times where the wife and I tried to play co-op and we had issues getting into the server and we couldn't play when we wanted to play. So for that, I'm going to take out a plus based on that. But as I stated earlier, the core mechanics, the fundamentals of this game are rock solid. This game is a hit. And I really want to see, like I said earlier, in that last question that we had, it continue as a franchise so that People Can Fly can build on the foundation and the core of this game that they've established, because they've done a fantastic job with it. So awesome job, guys. All of your grades are absolutely respectable. Brad, I fully understand why you gave it a C, because there were some that were having issues with it, and it may not be their jam, but all of you gave pretty good reasons for why you gave it the grade that you did. So, guys, that was our Outriders discussion. I want to thank you all for listening into this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard here today, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We'd love for you to join in with us the next time. Tell your family, tell your friends. We want as many people to join in on the fun as possible. Be sure to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platforms so more people can find out what the fun waste of time is all about. If you're interested in some of the latest things that are happening within the Fun Waste of Time community, be sure to follow us on our website, thefunwasteoftime.com, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. If you'd like to reach out to us to ask a question, share your thoughts on a particular subject, or just give us a shout out, you can contact us on the Fun Waste of Time website on our contact page, or shoot us an email at podcast@thefunwasteoftime.com. That's podcast@thefunwasteoftime.com. Well, y'all take care, and y'all come back now. You hear?